Horse Talk, where we are going to talk about questions that didn't get answered during yesterday's masterclass. Yes, and the first question was, will there be a recording to rewatch? The answer is yes. So if you signed up for the live masterclass, you have now gotten an email where you can get access to the replay for a limited time. It will only be there for a couple of days. So make sure to watch it before it's taken down. And if you didn't sign up to the masterclass, you can secure your spot and access to the replay on ridelikeaviking.no/masterclass. Yes, I hope this helps. And there were, I have about like 2 pages of questions, so I'm not gonna go through all of them, okay? So if your question doesn't get featured, then it's not to be mean or anything. Just have to select a few. There was one interesting here about the stallion. And Gabriela says, what do you recommend on stallions first if they are thinking of the mare next to them or in the herd? How do you train him your style? And yes, I've had several stallions, so I know quite a bit about this. And having a stallion can be challenging because they can start thinking of mares and start neighing and become very distracted, especially in new places or, when there are mares around. But I do the connection exercise and I lead them like I talked about during the masterclass. So I'm not leading them by the halter, trying to control them, but I lead with my feet and I am in front and the stallion follows, which in a way calms them down and also makes me the leader without getting into a fight with them. This works with any horse, by the way, no matter if it's a stallion or a gelding or a mare. Doesn't matter. You lead the way and the horse follows. Yes. And definitely doing the connection exercise and taking the guard for your stallion is something they appreciate a lot because they often have quite a bit of responsibility when out in the herd. So at least in my experience, stallions are very grateful to, have someone who helps them take the guard. So that's something the stallion is going to notice, and it's going to build a great relationship between you and your stallion. And then I would do the groundwork and train, in the regular way through body language and do the liberty lunging and teach them to move the hind end over and become soft in the reins and teach him everything he needs to know. And also then start giving choices to him like we talked about during the masterclass so that, he wants to be where he is and not everywhere else. Basically, you choose where you work and choose where you rest. And then once he is self-controlling and is able to, maintain speed on the loose rein when ridden, that's when you can then introduce another horse into the arena and you do the exact same thing. So when he then starts neighing and wants to run towards the mare, you basically allow him to go as close to the mare as safely is, and then you work him by the mare. And you work him quite a bit there. Ride your circles or whatever you are planning to do when riding. And once he's kind of tired of that and wants to go away from the mare, that's when you let him rest. So that he will then start associating mares when ridden or when trained with work. And will then choose to not engage with them. But if we are preventing them from interacting with other horses and from going towards other horses, we cannot change the horse's idea of other horses being something we want to fight or mate or, play around with while the rider is on the back or while we are leading the horse. It's a bit same as with the grass. So I do the exact same thing with other horses as I do with the grass, especially with a stallion who is then attracted by other horses for one reason or the other. And that will take the focus off the other horses and allow your stallion to focus on the ridden work and, doing things together with you. And then, of course, on his spare time, that's when he can cover mares and herd them around and, do all his things. But he doesn't need to do it while handled, trained, and ridden. Yes. So I hope this makes sense. And this works with everything. And the more we actually prevent a horse from doing the wrong thing, the more the idea of the wrong thing becoming attractive kind of escalates. Yes. So by following the horse on their idea and making it something else than what they had in mind will change their idea and their perception of the world. Preventing them from, doing that is not going to change their idea of what's going to happen if I get close to that mare. Yeah, if that makes sense. So the stallion is thinking, oh my God, I have this annoying rider who doesn't want to let me go close to the mare. I want to go there and check if she's in heat. But you are not that annoying rider. You just go, okay, we can go towards the mare, and that's where we ride, the circles I was planning to ride anyway. So the mare isn't something to sniff on or to mate or to flirt with. It's actually work when a rider is on my back or when I'm handled and trained. Yes, I hope this makes sense. You're going to get a wonderful stallion that is going to behave very, very well in shows if you do this at home. Yes, so we had a stallion. He did amazingly as a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. He really behaved very, very well on shows and different situations thanks to this approach. Yes. So don't treat them differently even though it's a stallion. And that also, I think, answers a question from Allison. Like, what if it is in a dangerous situation with somebody else? And it feels like we are safer when we control the horse and, lead them by the chin or put the chain over their nose or tighten the reins. But that safety is just an illusion. And very often, if we, take our hands closer to the horse's head or put chains over their nose or tighten the reins, we are then very often actually adding stress to an already stressful situation. So by working through things, by giving choices, like I talked about with the stallion and with the grass and everything, we are then able to actually change the horse's perception of the world. But obviously, if your horse is afraid of other horses, I wouldn't work my horse around that horse. I would then try to facilitate other horses being a resting place and a place of calmness. So then you basically kind of do the opposite. So depending on what problem you have, if your horse is feeling unsafe with other horses and becomes scared and is kicking out, then I would probably, make closeness to other horses a resting place and a place of relaxation and start, from afar and then get closer and closer. Maybe even train your horse so that you can pony another horse off your horse. First with the long distance and then closer and closer so that you overcome the problems instead of trying to prevent them by controlling the horse, because that is what makes horse riding and horse training unsafe, actually. Once we have a horse that we can trust and that is self-controlling, it's so much safer to handle them. But it is a bit counterintuitive. Yeah. We feel safer when in control, but we are actually safer once we have made our horse self-controlling. Yep. And there was another question that was I also wanted to talk about. Yes, will your program work when there is no enclosed area to work in? Yes, it will work because you can do all the exercises with a long lead rope or with tack. It doesn't really matter. You can do all of it is shown both with tack and without. But the way we do it with tack makes it also easy to do it without. So you don't need an enclosure to get results with the program. But I strongly recommend that you have an enclosure to enclosed space to work your horse. If you have a horse, I think investing in a round pen, it's basically costs the same as a saddle, and it makes it then possible to do the exercises easily without any tack. Yes, and then once you have done it in the enclosure, you can then sell the round pen. And you can make the round pen square or whatever. We have one. And you can set it up in 30 minutes, take it down again in 30 minutes. And yeah, it's a nice place to be able to then do the stuff also without any tack. Yep. But we have many members who don't have an enclosure and have gotten great results. Yes. Yeah, I think I have answered quite a few of these now. Am I right to think that the connection exercise will help general anxiety in horses? Yes, it does. It helps with general anxiety, and anxiety can show in different ways. So some horses are very expressive about their anxiety, and we can see it in the way they behave. They tend to behave badly. They tend to, spook and shy off of stuff and not pay attention to us and, be on guard. While other horses, they show the lack of relaxation in other ways. It can just be subtle signs in their body language, that their back is slightly hollow, their neck is a little bit stiff, they don't move as freely as they can do. Or they can also show anxiety by, shutting down and ignoring stuff and go inwards and, ignore our signals, even ignore the environment and just basically shut down. And this very often happens with horses who have gotten a lot of conflicting signals over the years. Like our children's horse, he was becoming quite shut down from all the kids riding him, because they would pick up on one rein, and if he didn't respond, they would switch and pick up on the other. And that's like inconsistent. Or they would give leg aid, and then he stopped and started grazing, and they would kind of give up the leg aid and ask for forwards, which made him then ignore the signal. So a lot of stuff was happening while the kids were learning to ride that, didn't benefit him and made him shut down. And also that's a way of anxiety that we don't necessarily recognize as anxiety. We think, oh, this horse is rock solid, he's super brave, the worst thing he does is to stop and graze, he's super horse for kids. But in reality, he was not feeling good, and he was, trying to cope by just ignoring stuff, which then started to show in the way he moved and the way he carried himself. And definitely also, his lack of forward became more and more apparent. So then I retrained him and made a video series about it. But it took actually longer to retrain him than very many of the anxious, more outgoing horses. Yes. So anxiety can come in different ways. But obviously I did the connection exercise with him and took it from there. And he ended up trotting and cantering and even tilting for himself. And he started building back muscle, and he became like the dream children's horse he was always supposed to be. But yeah, I kind of neglected him, to be honest. He was just, in the back with a kid on his back for, years and years. And that was not a good place to be in. And we bought him, and he had also then before that been a riding school horse. So, he was, getting old and this has been going on for several years, but it's still possible to get the dream horse, although something has, been going on maybe for this horse whole life, because I think he also was someone else's children's horse before that again. And we got him when he was about 18 or 20, and it was still possible to retrain him and, change this around. So anything is possible. Yes. And there are videos out there with him and Olav showing how he was before and how he then became after. And took a couple of months, but not a lot longer than that. Yes, so he was anxious too, but in a different way. So yes, I hope this helps. And Holly asks about if it's possible to do multiple horses at one time with the connection exercise. That's a great question. I haven't really done the connection exercise with more than one horse at a time, but I've done the liberty lunging and groundwork with more than one horse at a time. And I find that to be quite helpful, especially with Curly, who didn't know so much groundwork. He could then do like the liberty lunging together with a horse who knew it, so that he kind of learned it by following the other horse and my signals. And we also have a certified instructor in the Ride Like a Viking program, Aurora, in Iceland. And she does quite a bit of this with multiple horses, and also sometimes multiple trainers. So there are sometimes two persons with two horses, or one person with two horses. And she has videos of this, but I would definitely start with the one-to-one first. Yes, and then add on horses as you go. Yeah, but you can be the lead mare of a little herd there. And make them all relaxed and take the guard for multiple horses. Yes, of course. I think it's an excellent idea. And there were more about the horses ridden by others. If different people working with a horse, some with light signals and some that don't use as light signals, will the horse get confused? Louise asks about this, and I would say that's probably not the ideal situation. If you want a soft and responsive horse that responds to feel, that becomes a very personal relationship between you and your horse. But on the other hand, it can work also quite well, but you need to kind of be prepared to reinstall the feel and reinstall the hind leg engagement of your leg aid after the other riders have ridden your horse. Yes. But you can also solve actually quite severe problems, even though you only have the horse for a couple of times a week. We have many examples of that in the inside of Ride Like a Viking members. They are leasing a horse a couple of days per week and have solved separation anxiety and bolting and rearing, stuff like that, like big problems and spooking, in a way that has been, miraculous to the other riders, that suddenly the horse who was always afraid when alone is now calm and confident. And just by working the horse a bit differently 2 times per week, you can solve deep-rooted problems. But responsiveness and feel is something we need to polish, even though we are the only one riding the horse, actually. So I also polish the riding signals, even though I'm the only one riding the horse. I check in on the feel in the reins, I check in on the hind leg engagement of the leg aid before riding off. Because, something could have happened, maybe the horse is a bit off, or I don't take it like for granted that the horse stays the same in a way. I need to kind of check in on the horse before riding off. And just doing that, taking like 1 minute to just check in and, makes a huge difference. Once you know how to do this and your horse knows how to do this, then you kind of can ride off in a completely different way than if we don't do this little check-in and polish the riding signals a little bit. Okay, I think that was this for this evening's horse talk. I hope you enjoyed the questions. And let me know in the comments below what you would do with a stallion who is interested in mares to overcome the problem. Yes, would you do what I suggested, or would you do something else? Okay, thank you so much for joining, and bye for now.